Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 5th NVTC meeting. So my name is Karen Aguirre, Chair of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, and it looks like we're starting at about 7:01 p.m. We are live streaming the meeting, so we ask that commissioners speak up so those participating electronically and listening through YouTube can clearly hear what is being said. Tonight, we have several commissioners participating electronically. We have Ms. Crystal due to a medical reason. Senator Evan might or might not be here. Not yet. And Acting DRPT Director Jennifer DeBrule, who is a new Mbtc alternate, is also participating electronically under the provision of our electronic participation policy that allows a member to participate electronically if they live 60 or more miles away from the meeting location. I think Richmond qualifies for that. So our commission secretary has already confirmed we have quorum, so we could go ahead and get started. So I hope everyone had a chance to review the agenda. And actually real fast before we start, I'm going to take a quick point of privilege as chair. In case anybody's wondering what the heck I'm wearing or why I'm wearing it, this is a guayabera. It's a traditional garb in Latin America. And today is Cinco de Mayo. And it's not important to me just because of my own Mexican heritage, but my family is actually from the city where the battle was actually fought. And our home is at the bottom of where the battle was fought. And I actually grew up playing in the forts where the battle happened. So it's also not Mexican Independence Day, just to be clear. And I had the privilege to stop by the White House and enjoy some celebration today. So I am slightly more casual, so my apologies for that, but it's for a good reason. Okay, back to business. So we received one comment, I believe, Ms. Mattias.
It did, yes. We did receive one comment submission from Mr. Rob Whitfield, and it was forwarded to all of the commissioners earlier today. He asked some questions about the funding plan for one of the projects that's being considered for funding under the Commuter Choice Program. And you're going to be briefed on that a little bit more later this evening. The project is, he specifically was asking questions, was the Ballston Second Entrance Project, of which I-66 Commuter Choice funding would would be contributing about 4.5 million towards that project. It's actually, as we often happens with our Commuter Choice Program, we're one of often many sources of funding. And so we can always provide a little bit more details, but the 4.5 million is a very small portion of the overall funding that's coming from the county developers, Smart Scale, and they're also seeking funding through the authority. So just a little bit about that. And so I did also let Mr. Whitfield know he did comment this evening, but he actually has until the 16th of May to make comments on our program. So I directed him towards the place to be able to do that. He also requested some information about when we're going to be reporting on ridership. That's something NVTC actually has been reporting for many, many years. We work very closely in collaboration with the state to do that. There's been some IT changes, and in fact, not perhaps to steal Mr. Brule's thunder, but they're actually going to be moving to a really nice open web portal. So we may just be directing folks directly over to there moving forward. So that's another question that he had in his comments. And so that's basically sort of a summary and some of the resolution to some of the questions that he was asking.
Thank you, Ms. Mattias. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have a new alternate commissioner to welcome to NVTC. Governor Youngkin appointed Jennifer DeBrule as acting DRPT director following Jennifer Mitchell's departure from DRPT. Subsequently, Secretary of Transportation Shepard Miller appointed her to serve on NVTC as Mr. Spenberg's alternate representing the Commonwealth. So Acting Director DeBrule served as DRPT's Chief of Public Transportation for more than 5 years and has over 25 years of public service to the transportation community. Welcome to Mbtc, Acting Director DeBrule. And I think we're going to do a quick oath of office virtually over here. Hold up your hand. And I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
And the Commonwealth of Virginia.
the Commonwealth of Virginia,
And that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission
as a member of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
to the best of my ability.
the best of my abilities. Thank you.
All right, and this is something we are been wanting to do, but I'm also a little sad to do. But on March 11th, 2022, Secretary of Transportation Miller announced that DRPT Director Jennifer Mitchell was stepping down from the agency effective March 18th to become Deputy Administrator of the Federal Railroad Administration. Very cool. And Ms. Mitchell is here tonight, so we can recognize her invaluable service to NVTC. Ms. Mitchell was appointed by former Governor Terry McAuliffe to be the Director of the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation in January of 2014, following more than 20 years of experience in the transportation industry. She served that whole time on NVTC for 8 years. DRPT Director Mitchell has been a true partner with NVTC and its jurisdictions and was instrumental in helping Northern Virginia make great strides in transit. Some highlights are multi-decade agreements for I-66, the commuter choice inside and outside the Beltway, 395, dedicated funding for Wamata and VRE, which is, we all know the impact of that and the investments, and the creation of the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, which is a really big deal. And selfishly, I'm going to be taking as much advantage of that as possible. But that's just a few of the things that we have. And we have a resolution as well of commendation. I think we're gonna approve it first, and then we could do some pictures. So can I have a motion to approve this?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
All right, so I've got a motion by Mr. Letourneau, a second from Mr. DeFerranti. Any comments or discussion? I should have stated. Oh, Mr. Snyder. All right, my apologies.
I was honored that I was called Mr. DeFerranti.
Well, you apparently scaled the building today too.
Yeah, he may not have been honored return, mind you, but you know.
All right, so.
I'll speak briefly. I'm seeing the Women's History Month photo there, and Ms. Mitchell has definitely been a leader, especially for women in transportation. A rarity, hopefully not for long, but a great example. She will be greatly missed, but I think we are here so fortunate in our region that she will now be at the federal level and hopefully supporter of ours at the federal level. But we know she'll do excellent work. She's left us in good hands, but she will be greatly missed, and so happy to have her here today. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I was gonna let you and Kate go first. Yeah. So I first met Jennifer when she was on the Alexandria Transportation Commission long ago. People probably don't know that. She lived in Delray and was at a meeting when I was on council, and then I was on the VRE board, and I remember it was a very turbulent time at VRE when I was on there, and when we learned Jennifer was appointed. I've never seen a state official greeted more warmly for a meeting. And do you remember that meeting, your first meeting at VRE? People are like, oh, we have someone that we can work with and talk to. And it was just this huge sea change and shift in attitude and approach and partnership. And I think that's been a foundation of what Jennifer has done over these 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. A little over eight. Okay. So it, you know, all her successes, but also I don't think a lot of people realize she was also fundamental in helping get through the dedicated funding and working on that for us on our behalf. And the Safety Commission for Metro, so she has a lot of accomplishments, but also I've had the opportunity, as we have and others have around this table, to see Jennifer down in Richmond and with the legislature. And it didn't matter who it was, Republican, Democrat, elected staffer, appointed officials, governor's office, others, agencies, the respect and the interaction they had with Jennifer. I mean, it was very clear how they thought about her and respected her. And I've been in several meetings where she was just, very direct and honest with folks. And I know a lot of people appreciated that, and it showed in the way they not only interacted with you, but how they privately talked about you. Was a real testament. And I personally have really enjoyed working with you over the years, and you being there to support us as a community, in a region, but also personally as we've dealt with some real challenges, and particularly recently at Metro. So thank you so much for all you've done. And really,
thank you for the kind
nothing
words.
but success to you, really. It's great to see you have that. You deserve it.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Mr. Meyer.
My experience is quite different. Positive, but geographically different. She worked for the whole state, and we come here to talk about our regional transportation issues. She was also bird dogging the DC to Richmond rail project. And the project had this very vexing challenge of how to get through Hanover County to Richmond. And the rail line goes right through the middle of Ashland, Virginia. And I lived in Ashland as a college student, and the town had quite a proprietary feel for what they did not want. And so Jennifer was able to navigate some pretty turbulent waters and bring people together to a resolution that I thought was really remarkable. And the feedback I got from people in Ashland, whether it was the college president or the mayor, Steve Trevette, and others, was very, very positive. And I said, well, you have somebody that you got an honest broker with Jennifer. And so I saw her through the lens of something that's far removed from Northern Virginia, but critically important for the Commonwealth. And I appreciate what you did for the residents of Ashland, for the college, and for Hanover County.
It was the only time I had to be escorted to my car by the state police after a public hearing. But it all went well. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
So I first joined this commission in 1994, and I've seen DRPT directors come and go, and Jennifer was far and away the most effective. She's one of those rare people that has the strategic vision, but also the ability to carry it out. And, really, her work has been phenomenal, and FRA is lucky to have her. The country, frankly, is lucky to have her as a public servant at that level. And we'll be seeing you soon, Jennifer. And best of luck.
Thank you. I'm recused from Virginia matters for a year, but I still won't be going far.
Are there any folks on the phone that'd like to say anything?
Mr. Chair, I'll just take a very brief opportunity to echo our colleagues' thanks and to just note that in addition to the size of the impact that you've had, Jennifer, on the future of rail for, frankly, not just Virginia, but the entirety of our regional corridor, you've just consistently done it in a way that is really cognizant of the concerns and the role of local and regional groups like NVTC and PRTC and VRE. And, so many pieces of policy infrastructure that you've laid, like the VPRA and others, really reflect that respect. So not only are we so much better off in terms of the transportation and especially the rail achievements that you've made, we're also better off for the fact that you had such an understanding and respect for the work that we do as locals and as regional bodies. And I am always going to be especially grateful for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crystal. I can't really top anything that's already been said. I mean, I came in very new to this and immediately I saw the amount of respect that you had from this commission and beyond. And that's something that I always looked fondly upon and hope that others can achieve something like that. So Ms. Mitchell, I without further ado, I'm going to invite you up so that we can give you this resolution and
Thanks, One, three, 1, 2, 3, hold it, last one. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the words. This is extremely humbling and much appreciated. It has been really great to work with everybody here for the past 8+ years. This is one of the regions where there truly is such great regional cooperation. And I know that all of our jurisdictions have different issues and perspectives on some things, but I've been so impressed having had the opportunity to work all over the state at the level of professionalism and expertise of our elected officials, our appointed officials on the board, and the way that you guys work together is really impressive and made it very easy to partner with you all on a lot of things. I'm very, very proud of the accomplishments we have. I can't stand up here without saying anything about the 2 secretaries of transportation, Aubrey Lane and Shannon Valentine, that I served under, our deputy secretary, Nick Donahue, John Lawson, and many others. I'm absolutely thrilled that Jennifer Bull has been appointed to lead the way at DRBT. You have an amazing leader and partner in her as well. And I know that she is going to continue the great progress that we've made and even build on it with bigger and better things. So I'm really excited to be at the federal level, but I will not forget any of the time that I've spent here working with you all. And I'm sure that I'll continue to see your faces and see you all often. Again, I'll probably be up here even more now. So maybe see more of you. Thank you very much. Staying for the whole thing.
And Jennifer, how many times did you get to vote? Like once or twice?
Like once or twice, yeah. Just wanted a second emotion.
To some less exciting but important business, approval of our minutes. So we have our minutes from our previous meeting on March 3rd. Any comments, additions, subtractions, amendments? Move approval. Is that Mr. Skiles? Motion from Mr. Skiles, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. DeFerranti with the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? One abstention from Ms. Palchak. And any abstentions from our virtual folks?
Aye.
So aye from Ms. Crystal, Mr. Brule,
Aye, from Alcorn.
Alcorn, aye. Senator Eben,
No, I approve.
all right, looks like we got everybody. All right, the motion passes. So we have a lot on our consent agenda, so I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at it. We have, I believe, 8 items on consent, as well as 5 letters of endorsements for jurisdictional federal funding requests. The 4 letters of endorsement for USDOT RAISE grant applications are from the City of Alexandria, Arlington County, Fairfax County, and Loudoun County. And the 1 additional letter of endorsement for the City of Alexandria's application for the FTA Low-No Bus and Facility Grant Program. Can I have a motion for moving the consent?
Move for approval.
Ms. Palchak, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Letourneau with the second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now, Ms. Crystal. Ms. Alcorn. Aye. Mr. Evan, I think was an aye.
Aye.
Ms.
I don't need this.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And motion passes. All right, moving right along here. So item number 5, proposed amendments to the Mbtc FY23 G&A budget. So the commission is being asked to approve amendments to Mbtc's approved FY23 general administrative budget in the amount of $50,000, which is a 1.2% increase. Executive committee discussed this at their meeting tonight and took action to approve the proposed amendment for submission to the full commission for action. Ms. Matthijs, would you provide us a little bit more background?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Indeed. So NVTC historically looks to align our compensation adjustments with those of our member jurisdictions. One of the things that's tough is the timing. We actually prepare our budget in December for action in January, which is often several months ahead of when our jurisdictions are doing so. And so one of the things that's been quite clear as we look to benchmark against the jurisdictions is that we had a discrepancy between what we were looking to in terms of salary adjustments for our own staff compared to what was happening in the jurisdictions. And so what we would like to recommend is moving to a 4% cost of living adjustment, which is consistent with when we benchmarked against our jurisdictions. The important reason for doing that is obviously about both recruiting as well as retraining the amazing talent that we have at NVTC. One other thing that is included within this budget adjustment is some additional funds for travel and training, as we're noticing that things like hotel and training costs have actually gone up along with inflation as well. One thing just to clarify, when it comes to the source of these funds, a majority of NVTC's general administrative budget is actually paid for as a takedown from state aid. So what we're asking is an approval for the jurisdictions to pass along some of their state aid to account for this. So this does not actually hit any of the general funds of our localities. So I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Scott Alcorn.
Any questions for Ms. Matthijs or for staff? All right, good. Is there a motion to approve the proposed amendments to the budget?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Smedberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Palchik. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So those Evan and Crystal, Mr. Alcorn.
Aye.
All right. So we got everybody that's virtual, and motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're going to move on to our report from the Virginia Wamata board members. Mr. Smedberg and Mr. Letourneau, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thanks. I will start. At this point, I'm kind of tired about talking about the 23 budget, and you're probably all tired about hearing about it. But if I'm recapping what we've done since our last meeting, we did formally approve the budget. As I've said before, since the start of the general manager's proposal, we reduced the budget by 43 million. And we incorporated 120 million in additional American Rescue Plan money. And so now our attention turns to the budget gap in the FY24 budget, which we've also discussed at this point at length. We also received an update on the sustainability and zero emission bus effort. There's a full report in your written materials about this. The next immediate steps are the actual procurement of buses and equipment, so that Wamata will begin revenue service from the Shepherd Parkway Bus Division as part of our testing and evaluation program. Wamata applied to the Department of Transportation for a $25 million raise grant to help defray the cost of the Northern Bus Garage electrification project. And I had just checked in with Wamata staff. My understanding is we also will be applying for some of the no-low grants as well to help with that. Obviously, the number one question we get is, can we do it sooner than what our plan has proposed? And as we've talked about before, Wamata has, I think, some unique situations with the actual garages. Some of them are very, very old, and the power structures around them. So it really is more about the utility infrastructure. But Wamata is going to be definitely moving forward with the testing and evaluation program. The other thing to note, as we've also talked about before, is that it is a technology neutral long-term project, and that while electric buses are sort of the first technology, Wamata very much wants to be at the forefront of things that might be next, including hydrogen. And so that's something the staff is working on. The return to service plan was released also since the last time we met. It's a 3-step process to help improve frequency, capacity, and reliability. The first step of that is restoring more of the 6,000 series cars to service. On Monday, Metro increased train frequencies on the green and yellow lines to every 15 minutes. There's a total of 50 of those 6,000 series cars that are coming online by the end of this month. So that is going to help. Second is working with the Metro Rail Safety Commission on the daily inspections of the 7,000 series trains using a digital gauge. We don't have a report that we can give right now on the root cause of the 7,000 series derailment, except maybe to say that there has been quite a bit of work that's occurred on that. And a reminder that the NTSB is leading that discussion. So it's really going to be their announcement when that comes. But in terms of what Metro is doing, we are moving forward with plans to deploy essentially devices throughout the system that will cover trains on each line that will be able to measure the distance and what they call the trucks, which is the wheel sets. And that will help immediately know whether there's a variation or a deviation from what the norm should be. And that will be a way of getting the 7,000 series trains back into the fleet and being able to constantly monitor what's happening with them. Unfortunately, as I've said before, you don't go out and buy this piece of equipment at Target. It's custom made. And we all know how difficult it is to acquire all these things right now. But our understanding is that the first one of those should be arriving on the property this month, and then they're coming on a regular basis from that. So gradually the 7,000 series trains will be able to be restored into the fleet. And then also, well, wayside inspection and digital gauge are really the two pieces of that process. I will stop there and turn it over to Paul to talk a little bit about some new safety initiatives.
Yeah, so last week some announcements were made on that front, but as ridership comes back over the last couple of years, there's a new feeling that the ridership experience has changed a bit on Metro over the last couple of years. And to address some of those issues as people come back, Wamata announced, some initiatives to engage the community, target law enforcement efforts, and increase police visibility on buses, trains, and at the stations. The Metro has its own police force, and that police force has developed a 3-tier approach: education, outreach, and enforcement. So first, the police department has established a new community service bureau to head up efforts to work with schools, neighborhood groups, and mental health advocates to foster collaborative relationships. Second, Wamata will launch a new anti-harassment public awareness program, and the police department will conduct outreach and develop partnerships with community resources to address essential services or the essential service needs of those who are homeless and in mental health crisis. And third, the police department will increase paroles of uniform and plainclothes officers at selected rail stations and bus routes where, based on various crime data points. So those are new efforts that are underway. We want to make the rider experience, as pleasant as possible, and to address some of the issues that some riders have communicated that they're experiencing recently and that we know are taking place. So we hope these efforts will help with that. And the other thing I'd like to report on, a lot of you have asked about the search for the new GM. The search is ongoing. We're in process. It's been ongoing now for a few weeks. Matt and I are obviously part of that process. And who knows when we'll have an announcement, but the process is ongoing. So.
Questions, Ms. Strauss?
On the zero emission bus
transmission. I recall in 2009, we got a briefing from staff on bus transformation project.
For 2009.
Oh, sorry, 2019.
I was gonna say, yeah, 19. I can't help you on that.
I think I was in college. In 2019, we had the bus transformation project. What is the status of that study? And I asked for two reasons. One, if Metro is embarking upon the purchase of the zero emission buses, obviously ridership has changed dramatically since pre-pandemic. So are we looking at route redesign, and how does that factor in the procurement of buses and what routes they're put on with respect to that study?
So maybe I'll let Andrew take a little bit of this, but the interesting thing on the ridership is that on bus, it actually did not drop dramatically. Bus ridership has been significantly higher than rail and stayed that way throughout. But the transformation study we all spent a lot of time looking at, that ultimately leads to a bus network design study. And that is being launched this summer and continuing through the rest of the year. And that phase of it is looking at each specific route and really the whole system, because there's a lot of sort of legacy pieces to the bus route system that I think if we were to look at now, don't necessarily make a lot of sense. For instance, there's a lot of parallel routes to metro lines in the city, which there may have been reasons to add at one point, but at this point, don't necessarily make a lot of sense. So I'm really looking forward to that because I think that's really the meat of this project. But do you want to speak specifically on the?
I mean, I can't really add much more other than that it is actively in procurement right now. And so there'll be a lot more to come when Wamata gets a consultant and starts that up later this year.
And David, they're also taking into account, in the district in particular, they've been very aggressive working with Wamata to get dedicated bus lanes. I don't know if you've been downtown recently, you see a lot of
bus lanes,
a lot of bus lanes, a lot of things. So a lot is going to be changing with that. And there's going to be a lot more coordination with our local systems, which is important.
So what the procurement is initially is small because it's testing. So it's not, this isn't a huge order for a large number of buses initially. But we do have a fleet of 1,800 buses, and they're on lifespan schedules. And so the plan is, our next large procurement, we will start doing additional CNG and then ultimately transitioning to zero emissions.
I'm remembering back to that study.
Yeah, no, it was big.
How that dovetails in, so thank you.
It's a big project, yeah.
But even on our side, Matt made the point, you look at the district facilities, some of those facilities are actually designated historic structures. That's how old they are. And the infrastructure and the wiring that goes into there, I mean, the power generation is just simply, it's just not adequate. They're going to have to engineer and build new substations and capacity projects throughout the city in this region to handle all of that. I mean, and not just buses, but cars. All the energy going into your homes for cars and businesses and all the computers, the farms out in Loudon and all that stuff. So there's a real effort. We could actually use help in making sure the energy companies, really step up. We're seeing it in other areas where transit agencies and the electric companies are working hand in hand to do this together. In fact, some are actually paying for the transformation of some of these structures to make sure that things happen. But in this region, not so much so far. That's been the real stumbling block.
Other questions?
Just a brief comment. The department reached out, the safety department reached out to my office, and they had a good outreach event over at Siena Metro, and I know they're coordinating the outreach in the community, so just want to appreciate the efforts there and look forward to continuing to see that in the collaboration. We're right across the street from the Metro, so it was helpful to see that in the community and their.
Yeah, I think the last figures we saw, bus is what, 8% of ridership. Pandemic,
ridership, yeah.
Yeah, it's
like
about 80.
78.
Yeah, 75, 80, somewhere in there, and rail is
40, mid
40,
40s.
yeah, mid 40s. So, but it's slowly ticking up. Yeah. Rail is ticking up.
thank you to our two Virginia board members. Our NVTC Wamata committee also met last month. Mr. Alcorn, would you like to give us an update on what happened and the action we're looking at for tonight?
I will, but I just saw my colleague Katie Crystal had her hand up. I saw it. I don't think anybody else saw it.
Walter, I
Katie, did you have a
appreciate
question?
that. Thank you so much.
Apologies,
I just
Ms.
had a
Crystal.
quick question. I could live without asking, but I'm glad to have the chance and I appreciate it. Just about, Paul, you had mentioned about bringing more of the 6,000 series back into service, and then it was bringing, I think you said 50 of those
50 in
older
May,
cars,
yeah.
is, what allowed the reduction in headways on the green and yellow line, which are good. I mean, I continue to be, as I've expressed before, and I know colleagues are too, just really concerned about the long headways at a time when people are making decisions about how they'll commute back to the office. Do you have a sense of, you mentioned trying to get more of the 6,000 series back. What is the order of magnitude possibility? I mean, is 50 the tip of the iceberg and it'd be possible to bring back 200? Is 50 already a stretch and it'd be onesies and twosies from here on out? Just help me understand the scale of that as a solution.
I was talking about the 6,000 series, which are not the ones involved in the derailment, but had already.
Right. Because I think you were saying that,
Yeah.
that it's a 6,000 series, bringing those out of retirement essentially has
Yeah,
allowed.
and so there's
reduction.
50 of those, and I think there's ultimately a plan to do another 30 or 40.
30 or 40.
30 or
30 or
40,
40.
but the focus will then switch to the 7,000 series,
Sure.
getting them back on the tracks as soon as we can get the wayfinding, wayside inspection equipment out, which, we're supposed to be taking the first delivery of the first apparatus this month. And so we have to go through a safety commission process to get that approved. But when that happens, that will hit first, and it'll go on one line, and then Wamata will start bringing 7,000 series trains back and rotating them throughout the line so that they're going over that wayside station. And ultimately, we'll have, I think it's 6 or 8 of these on each line. We'll have at least one of these, and so every train will be hitting it. So the more we get of them, the quicker we get them. When they're scheduled, they're starting in May, and then they're continuing throughout the summer into the fall. By the time we get them all, we should be able to bring most of the 7,000 series trains back, and that's ultimately going to have the biggest impact on service delivery.
Sure. That's plan A, right?
Yeah. Plan B is we can't max. I mean, there's, I think, like I said, I think it was another 30 or 40 6,000 series but they're waiting for. Yeah. Thanks. 100 of those have been approved for service. 38 are in progress. 44 are waiting for parts.
Okay.
So that's, supply chain. But
And these
Right,
inspection vehicles, Katie, will move around on the various lines. They won't stay stationary. They'll move around at various points.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I am glad to see some focus on bringing those older cars out of retirement. I mean, I think it's, in addition to just the general frustration of the delayed headways because of the 7,000 series, I think we've all felt, and I suspect you guys feel this way on the board, frustrated at sort of the powerlessness of the ability to advance that in any kind of predictable way or know when they're coming back. So I actually really appreciate Wamata staff sort of looking to that plan B and at least starting to restore some of the, or at least decrease some of the headways. So thank you.
And the only other factor there is the root cause analysis. So this is
Right.
all occurring, assuming there is no root cause.
Right.
If and when there's a root cause determined that's NTSB announces, then there may need to be corrective action, obviously, which could impact the 7,000 series. Or, we may be clear to bring them back, or, there's a lot of possibilities there. So we've been proceeding without knowing that piece of information because that's all we really can do.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, now back to Mr. Alcorn.
All right, thank you, Chair Geary. I do have a brief report on the
I knew it was there
NVTC Wamata Committee. We did meet on April 21st. I want to thank all the committee members, but especially Paul, you and Matt for your active participation in that committee activity. We had several presentations, talked about bus priority, which is, it sounds a little bit like bus transformation. It's kind of a subset, a little different than bus priority, or bus transformation, but bus priority in terms of getting buses to move better in traffic, stoplights and things like that. Also, a good primer on how Wamata is funded. in Virginia in particular, and also discussion of the FY24 operating budget gap. The presentations are in your meeting materials, so the full presentations are online if folks are interested. So there was, in discussion of Wamata funding, there was really widespread agreement, at least among committee members, that we really do need a new funding model, particularly an operating funding model for Wamata. We're looking at the FY24 operating budget gap, but also looking beyond that. It's a pretty serious issue, and there was some good discussion about sort of the situation there. So this is something that the committee will continue to be working on with NVTC staff and also with our Wamata board members. So we do look forward to having a broader conversation about this year. There is one action item this evening that we have on the agenda coming out of the Wamata committee, and that's to authorize the chair to send a letter to Wamata regarding Virginia's priorities for the blue, orange, silver quarter capacity and reliability study. I direct everybody to the packet. There's a one-page draft letter there, and there was a good discussion at the Wamata committee. I know Matt talked about and flagged that there will be some process that Wamata is going to initiate in the near future to solicit public input on the alternates that have been identified in this study. And the committee was briefed on this last fall. So there are clearly existing capacity needs, and that's the focus of the letter. In particular, the Roslyn Tunnel bottleneck, which is not a new problem. This does not involve expansion of the system, but really just fixing a capacity issue that's been there for a number of years and has been identified as one that needs to be fixed. So the letter does speak for itself, but there was a lot of discussion that we really need to make sure that the Metro Rail focus on addressing capacity issues addresses existing capacity issues, and that this be done in a phased way. So we do encourage everybody to take a look at that letter. If you have any comments, the full text is in your meeting materials. And the Wamata committee is going to be meeting again June 16th at 6 p.m. and then again on July 21st at 6 p.m. And as always, not just committee members, but all NVTC members are encouraged to attend. And it's also streamed out to the public. And with that, Chair Geary, I don't know if we need a motion to authorize the letter.
I believe we do. Would you like to place one?
I'd be very happy to do that. So I move that Mbtc authorize the chair to, let me make sure I'm saying this right, authorize the chair to send a letter to Wamata regarding Virginia's priorities for the blue, orange, silver quarter capacity and reliability study.
Thank you, Ms. Elkin. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Palchak. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Front.
Thank you to you or Kate or Andrew or the combination of drafting quickly. To the chair of the committee for shepherding this. This is smart and timely and really helpful. Thanks.
And I can't take any credit, so thank you to staff and the Wamata committee. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 That's everybody virtually. Any nays or abstentions? Passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for that one. Okay, so it looks like we're going to move on to our program advisory committee and a report from our chair, Mr. Dave Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Program Advisory Committee met on April 14 to discuss the proposed I-66 choice 2023-2024 program projects in the Envision. We also received an update on the transit technology program on NVTC's fare collection efforts and our new zero emission bus working group. The Commission will receive an update on these two exciting efforts. First item tonight is an action item related to the Envision Route 7 BRT project. The Commission is being asked to take action to authorize the executive director to issue a request for proposals, RFP, for consulting services for the Envision Route 7 Bus Rapid Transit Strategic Implementation Roadmap. The Envision Route 7 BRT project is planned as a high-performing BRT service that connects Tysons via Falls Church, Seven Corners, Skyline, and Bailey's Crossroads to the Marks Center in Alexandria, where a portion of the service will share infrastructure with the West End Transit Way BRT in Alexandria. And I think if anyone who's been out on Route 7 lately, you understand the need for this project. So I'll turn it over to staff first for a presentation, and then we can have a commission discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we jump into the presentation, I did want to take this quick opportunity to introduce you all to one of our newest members of the NVTC team, Xavier Harmony. I was joined us most recently from DRPT, where a lot of folks know him from, and Wamata. So we were very, very happy to pull him over onto this side of the river, get him diving into a lot of different exciting things we have going on. He's the program manager for the Transit Resource Center, which you've heard a lot about over the last couple of years, doing a lot of great work on the Route 7, and then also a lot of the data analysis stuff that we've been diving into for the last few years. So I've been completely amazed about the work that he's doing, the ideas he has. And so stay tuned over the next part of this year to see a lot of great information looking back into those trends, that data. We collect a lot of it. What are we going to do with it? He's got some great ideas. I'm excited to see it. And I know you're going to be excited to see it as well. So we welcome him to Mbtc. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Xavier. Take it away. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm going to keep my briefing fairly short. I'm aware that you had an update on this project at our last meeting in March. And so most of this should hopefully be familiar, but I'll go through it a little quickly just to get it done out of the way. So as mentioned, this project goes from Tysons through to Alexandria, touching 4 jurisdictions and connecting through touching East Falls Church on the way through. Next slide, please. So the next part of this project, we are in the middle of a mobility study, but the next phase of this project is this strategic implementation roadmap. Like I said, you had an update on this in March, but the key point are in the second bullet points. This study will address 3 points. It'll create a project governance roadmap. It'll guide the phase implementation of the future phases of this project, and it will help us figure out the strategic funding decisions that are needed for this project, right through the rest of the planning of this project, through to construction and implementation of the project. We have been engaged with the PAC, the Commission, you all, and at the staff level, the relevant jurisdictions throughout the time of this project. This next phase, this strategic implementation roadmap, is a partnership between Fairfax County and Mbtc. It's a 50-50 cost split between Mbtc and Fairfax County. And I would like to thank Fairfax County for their support with this project. It's a very useful addition in helping us figure out how to actually finish up the planning and implementation of this project. Overall, this project will be $50,000. That includes both the Fairfax and Mbtc portions of the costs. And we expect that it would be finishing in around 6 months, so approximately the end of January. I welcome any questions or comments anyone might have.
All right, any questions or comments for staff? Virtual folks? No? All right. All right, can we have a motion to authorize the executive director to issue an RFP for the Envision Route 7 Bus Rapid Transit Strategic Implementation Roadmap?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. McKay with the motion, Ms. Palchek with the second. Any further discussion? Personally, I'm very excited about this myself. I talked about it a couple of meetings ago, but I'm going to be hopping on that BRT to Tysons for sure.
We'll greet you when you get there.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Virtually, Ms. Crystal.
Aye.
Mr. Alcorn and Mr. Evan. All right, any nays or abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right, Thank you guys so much. Mr. Snyder, go back to you.
Sure, thanks a lot. That is a very exciting program, and thank you to everyone. Our next PAC item is item 7B. This is a presentation on the I-66 Community Choice FY 2023-2024 staff recommended program of projects. Staff briefed the committee on the projects being considered for funding. NVTC received a total of 11 applications seeking a total of $22.3 million in funding under the call for projects that concluded in January. 9 applications with a total funding request of $21.8 million met eligibility requirement and under consideration for funding. So here's the itch. There's $13.4 million available for new projects in the FY 2023 to 2024 period. This amount comprises carryover balances, a modest amount of new I-66 inside the Beltway toll revenue, and 2 years installments of outside the Beltway express lanes concessionaire payments to the Commonwealth. No action is being requested tonight. Staff will bring this back for action at the June meeting. And Ben Owen can explain to us how in Solomonic fashion figured out how to craft projects with about half the desired funding. Anyway, go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. Excellent introduction. You covered many of my points, so I'll be quite succinct. Yeah, so I'll be talking through the prospective contours of our I-66 Community Choice fiscal year 23-24 program of projects tonight, and we'll be seeking your adoption of a program of projects next month. So Mr. Snyder kind of outlined the Chair Snyder, the call for projects process and time frame. This slide shows the results of our technical evaluation process on the 9 eligible proposals. So when we had last presented to you in March, we had basically just completed our eligibility review, and then the scoring was kind of the subsequent piece of that. So you see the summary results here, more detailed results as an attachment in the commission meeting materials. Most of the possible points of the scoring process, 70 of the 100, come from technical merit factors that are basically getting at how well each proposed project meets the corridor improvement goals outlined in the memorandum of agreement for I-66, of maximizing person throughput. That's really the most important factor in the process. Improving mobility, expanding travel choices, and enhancing safety and reliability. Smaller elements of the process are looking at cost effectiveness, so sort of comparing the technical merit score to the funding request, also taking the useful life of the project into account. There's a factor that allows each applicant to identify their top priority project and get a small number of points for it. And then a small factor for whether each proposal has been coordinated with other jurisdictions or agencies in the region. One thing about the funding, so I mean, we are being very cautious, particularly with inside the Beltway toll revenue. We are starting to see kind of modest payments from that again, but toll revenues do remain below pre-COVID levels and have proven kind of sensitive to fluctuations in travel demand. If we do receive more money than the $13.4 million that's conservatively expected for new projects, we would apply that to our next call for projects, which will take place in late 2023 for fiscal years 25 and 26. Next slide, please. So when the PAC met in mid-April, we presented a draft program of the 6 top scoring projects totaling $12.4 million. That's what appears here. We have received a request from Fairfax County staff to consider funding partially the 7th highest scoring project, which is the trail access to Vienna Metro Rail station project, with the $1 million that would be left over available for projects. Basically, that project would have been next in line to be considered for funding. The total funding request was $2.2 million, so that wouldn't fit within the available amount. We as staff are amenable to considering the request. We've asked the county if they can identify other funds to fill the difference within a timely manner so that it wouldn't delay implementation of the project. So if they can do so and the commission is amenable, $1 million for that project could be added to this list as well. In terms of what's in the program, there are 2 long-lived rail capital investments. Those are 2 at the top. Put together, they would leverage over $160 million in other funding, and they would offer long-term benefits to I-66 corridor commuters. So over multiple decades of useful life. The proposed program includes continuation of 3 established OmniRide and Fairfax connector commuter bus routes. We're starting to see ridership tick back up on those. Once the outside the Beltway express lanes open late this year, that'll really benefit those 2 OmniRide services, providing a much more reliable and smoother trip. Also, a 10-month half-fare campaign for OmniRide's 5 commuter routes originating in western Prince William County, traveling into Arlington and DC, once the outside the Beltway lanes open to help build on that rebounding ridership. And then the Vienna Metro Rail Trail project, that would basically fill a roughly 1-mile gap in the planned I-66 corridor trail that'll parallel I-66 outside the Beltway. It's kind of an important gap because it goes right by the Vienna Metro Rail station, so it would improve bike and ped access to that facility. At the bottom of the slide, you see some of the highlights of the proposed program. Besides supporting over 4,000 daily trips in the corridor, the program would result in significant savings for commuters in terms of their vehicle miles traveled, as well as their out-of-pocket fuel expenses when you sort of compare like if they were driving alone for trips versus trips they would take using these projects. And it would also reduce greenhouse gas emissions significantly relative to driving alone. So we used a nationally recognized tool to do that estimation. We are developing sort of a technical memorandum if that's of interest to anyone, seeing just how we came up with those numbers. Next slide, please. We are also currently collecting public comment on the 9 projects. So all 9 projects under consideration for funding. We will share the full set of comments exactly as we receive them with the PAC and the full commission before next month's meeting. As of this afternoon, we've received 62 submissions already with a total of about 90 project-specific comments. So that's really good, getting into the level of kind of pre-pandemic funding rounds. And I do want to thank several of you for helping us get the word out through your various means of communication. If you haven't yet, you still can because comment is open through May 16th. So any efforts to help us get the word out are very, very much appreciated. For the first time this time around, we produced both English and Spanish versions of all of our published materials, including our streamlined feedback survey and the project profiles. Next slide, please. So in terms of what's coming up, we are coordinating with DRPT on a CTB briefing later this month on the projects under consideration for funding. Next month, we'll be back with you to seek adoption of the program of projects and its referral to the CTB to be included in their 6-year improvement program approval later in the month. Once the new fiscal year begins, implementation of selected projects may begin. And we do have ongoing reporting requirements once projects get underway. I kind of mentioned a bit of an upturn in ridership we're seeing. Some are kind of gradually stepping up, some are kind of leaping up, which is great. We will be doing a detailed look at project performance over the summer, releasing our next annual report on the performance of projects we funded this October. And sort of like we did with this evaluation cycle, not just looking at ridership, but kind of more broadly on the benefits of what we funded. So with that, I will wrap up and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Owen. Before we open it up to everyone, I wanted to give Ms. Palchik an opportunity. Any comments about the project?
Sure, happy to. And I know we're not taking action today, but want to thank you and your entire team for your work on this. And I know that we've been working with our side on the county side with Mvtc. And it is, as mentioned, this Vienna Metro Rail project is critical. It is about a mile. And it connects the Vienna Metro pretty much in the middle to the I-66 trail on one side, the Cross County Trail on the other side. And I know the mayor will say it is very close to the city of Fairfax. So also an appreciated connection over there. We are, I hope Chairman agrees, are ready to commit to the 1.2 million on the county side to be able to match the 1 million of the remaining funds. And so an important project. We think it will have, a good impact on this 11-mile system on I-66 along the trails. I'm trying to remember if there was something else I was going to say tonight. And I also just really want to commend you on the Spanish and the social media posts. I really think you up to the game. It was one of the best packages I've seen to make it easier for our offices to be able to share out the information, even the photos and the social media posts. I just wanted to thank you and the team who worked on that. Really, really excellent. Your entire team as well, Monique. So thank you so much. But yes, I think an important project and just want to ask the commissioners to consider adding this project that was the next one in line. It was only, I think, 3 points below the project that was funded above it. And while we do have limited funding this year, I think anything we can ink in there, one additional project, even though it's only partial funding for it. Most of the projects, it is only partial funding that's coming from this. So I think would be an excellent addition. And I think the chairman wanted to add some comments as well.
Yeah, I echo everything that Supervisor Palchik just shared in terms of accolades for the staff. Having been involved in this for a number of years, I think this was the smoothest ever, and a lot of advancements made, very transparent. I will say that, the staff does what I think all of our jurisdictional staff does, which is very smart and very good, which is estimates very conservatively. And so I would suggest that, first, because 13.4 million is a conservative estimate, we should earmark every penny of that. And if it turns out that, Fairfax County needs to supplement that by 1.2 million once we have a better idea of how the revenues are going, then we certainly will commit to do that. However, we would want to use every dollar that's possible in this. And most importantly, for the people who are paying the tolls, is to get projects built that they can see, that they can benefit from real time. My concern is because it is close and because there is a balance and because we can commit to fund whatever gap there is in this. My concern is if we wait for the next cycle, not only will this project be a lot more expensive likely, but it certainly will not be ready near the time it would be ready if we kept momentum up. And so I think it's a smart thing for us to do. And for those of you, looking at the chart, worrying about your jurisdictions, the next two projects below this one are both Fairfax County projects too. So no other project really is being affected by doing that. And we are just so eager to get going on this and show results for people that we're willing to make the investment if there's a gap there to make this happen.
Thank you, Ms. Palchik, and thank you, Mr. McKay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Meyer.
The city of Fairfax is on the cusp of awarding a contract to begin what we call the Picket Road Trail. And it will connect existing trails up to the city limit right there at 50 and Picket Road, which is the main trail to the Vienna Metro Station. This trail that we're about ready to construct parallels the county line by about 60 feet. And so this is a classic example of regional investment where everybody benefits. And so I strongly support Commissioner Palchik's suggestion that we move forward on this.
Thank you for those comments. Definitely get to know that. Checking virtually real fast, see if anybody wanted to say anything. Looks like we're good. All right, well, again, no action tonight for that, but thank you for that, and we'll be looking forward to it in the next couple of meetings. Looks like we're gonna move on to item number 8, which is our legislative update. And our Legislative and Policy Committee Chair David Meyer will introduce this agenda item. Mr. Meyer.
Okay, thank you. As you all know, the regular session of the GA ended on March 12. And when they adjourned, they did not have a budget, and there were several bills that were still in conference committee. So the GA came back into session on April 4 and for a special session. And one of the key bills that we were monitoring in this special session was SB 6001, which is the whole issue of the gas tax. And most of you are pretty familiar with the proposal from the governor to suspend the gas tax for 3 months, phase it back in at 50% for 2 months, and then cap the index to the gas tax at 2%. Whatever the CPI is or would be in the future, it'd be capped at 2%. On April 19, the House Finance Committee voted to refer the bill to the House Appropriations Committee. However, last week in the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee voted to, quote, pass by indefinitely this bill. And so it is essentially dead, which is consistent with the NVTC's preferred outcome, because the gas tax is critical to so many things that we are pursuing here. So I want to express my appreciation to Amy for her close monitoring of this, of what I just described. This just didn't happen in a vacuum. There were a lot of people that contributed to the outcome of this. Sometimes success is measured in by what does not happen as much as what does. So Amy, thank you. And I'm going to turn this over to you for a full discussion of the special session and where we are.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Yes, as you said, I think I would like to sort of extend my appreciation for the large coalition of folks that we got to work with at NVTC for the folks that worked against the gas tax. We had a really broad and diverse group of people, over 50 different organizations joined together to work on that. So we worked on that quite hard. Obviously, it's still technically alive still on the House side, just to be clear. So, I think we expect, obviously, since it died in the Senate, that if it was ever to come over from the House, that would be the same outcome. So we worked again, like I said, on a very broad coalition, and we're very pleased to be part of that group. So appreciate everybody's hard work and all the work that Mbtc did to provide us information and data, and it was really helpful. NVTA, the Alliance, and the Authority were very helpful as well as the Nova Chamber and a lot of other folks. So we got to do quite a bit on the gas tax. As far as the veto session, which was also held last week, we had some bills that we had. I know Senator Eben is on the call, so I'm happy to turn his bill over to him, which was Senate Bill 281, which was a bill dealing with the bus procurement bill that we had, DRPT, DGS, us, and the Virginia Auto Dealers worked on. That did have an amendment, but it was just a minor amendment, and that bill, the amendment was adopted, and then the bill was already signed into law. So I don't know, Senator Eben, if you wanted to add anything to that, happy to have you weigh in.
I think it's straightforward, and just want to thank Amy for her help on it during the session. So thank you.
Sure. Happy to do it. It was helpful. I think the language is also still, as we know, in the budget, both in the caboose budget, hopefully, and the 2-year budget. Importantly, it's in the caboose budget so that DRPT can get started working on those procurements as soon as possible, since that'll take effect before July 1 if it gets signed. And so then the other 2 bills that we were following during the veto session were the 2 bills dealing with the TRIP. That was Senate Bill 342, and House Bill 142 also had a minor amendment that actually put a sunset on it for those bills to not take effect to be done in 2024. Those amendments were approved, and the governor has signed those bills as well. So where we are now is we're technically still in special session and waiting for the budget. I have heard that the budget is getting closer to being done. I think maybe people are hoping that hopefully by the end of next week, the budget would be done, and maybe we would come back the week of the 15th. But that, again, is just rumor and I think optimistic speculation. So we hope that's the case. And again, I would defer to Senator Eben on that if he has any other further comments as well.
I don't really have an update except to say that, I've heard things similar in timing, but we won't know till there's an agreement, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. So happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions from the commissioners? Mr. Schneider?
Not a question, just a comment. I want to thank all of our representatives in Richmond for regardless of what party or what your position is, it's much appreciated. So thank you all very much.
I can't see the virtual folks. Anybody virtual have a hand up or anything? All right, Ms. Tice, any reporting from TISDAC or federal legislation?
Indeed, and so in the wonderful world of acronyms, TISDAC is the Transit Service Delivery Advisory Committee. And that's actually it's an organization that supports the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. I have the honor to serve on behalf of the Virginia Transit Association. One of the things that advisory board is charged with doing is indeed advising DRBT on the way the state allocates transit funding, both capital as well as operating. And every 3 years by code, we're to reconvene and really dive in and working with DRBT. So this is one of those years. And so we have just sort of started getting into that work right now, but we are starting to examine what appears to be some minor changes within the capital program. Over the course of the summer, we're going to learn a little bit more about the proposed changes to the operating program. And so part of the reason I wanted to sort of alert you to this is that as we get to learn and know, obviously I have a wonderful committee of jurisdictional staff who are helping understand all of this, but I may be coming back to this body for comments, for the commission to be writing comments, to be submitting formally to DRPT, nothing yet, but perhaps this is sort of some breadcrumbs in that area. So again, we actually do have advisory committee meeting even actually next Friday. It's actually one day a month all the way through. But again, I'll keep you posted both in any changes to the capital program, which they call the merit program, and the other one is on the operating assistance. And again, this is for transit systems all across the Commonwealth. I do want to be very clear, this does not affect any of the Wamata funding. That is separate and apart, but it's all of our local systems, including VRE. So I'll keep you posted on that. The other thing I did want to give you an update on, obviously, I know there's a lot of interest in the federal programs, the discretionary programs. Obviously, you approved a number of endorsement letters for both DOT-wide as well as Federal Transit Administration. The other thing that I think many of you are aware is Congress is looking at what's their clever name? Community project funding efforts, AKA earmarks. And I did want to pass along to all of you. We had the opportunity, we were actually approached by both Congressman Beyer as well as Congressman Connolly. And both of them, as of today, have agreed to put forward an earmark request to support planning and NEPA. That's the environmental studies to do with our Envision Route 7. We have a long way to go in that process, but the wonderful thing is both of those two members who touched that corridor have decided to put forth that project as a part of the deliberation. So obviously I'll keep you posted. The $2 million project that we've proposed will make a huge impact on being able to finish up that program. And again, Xavier presented the strategic framework. That's a big part of sort of those next steps. So hopefully gets us in a really good place to be applying for anything from smart scale to the federal capital investment grants program. So stay tuned and watch that space. I'm really delighted that both of those offices reached out to us and we were able to turn around and provide them something. So thanks for that. So that's what I have.
Okay, any questions or comments for Ms. Matthijs? Virtual folks, looking good. And also wanted to say thank you again to Ms. Perone Cyber, and I forgot to mention that, but we really appreciate all the work that you're doing down in Richmond, Amy, so thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on to item number 9, which is VRE. Unfortunately, the CEO, Rich Dalton, is unable to be with us tonight, but we do have VRE Chief of Staff, Mr. Joe Schwartz, as well as VRE General Counsel Stephen Geisig to answer any questions. But we're going to start off with a report from Mr. Schwartz.
Rich sends his regards, unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. So I'm Joe Schwartz, the Director of Government and Community Relations. He asked me to come and give you just a brief overview of our ridership recovery efforts. So next slide. As we know, the pandemic took a toll on VRE's ridership. It plummeted from over 355,000 monthly riders in February of 2020 to 10,000 riders in April of that year. Since about last fall, we started seeing a slow, unfortunately very slow, but steady increase in ridership. About this February, we saw a little momentum. Things started to pick up. We're seeing between 10 and 40% increases week to week since then. Monthly ridership went from 53,000 in February to nearly 92,000 in April. I just checked. I really wanted to be able to come in and tell you that we hit 6,000 riders today. We didn't. We missed it by about 40 riders, really close. But at about 6,000 riders a day, that means we are over 30% of our pre-pandemic average daily ridership numbers. So it is coming back. But pre-pandemic, we were running very full trains. So we didn't need to do a whole lot of marketing. You can go to the next slide, please. We didn't need to do a whole lot of marketing. So this is new to us, but we are really ramping up our marketing efforts now. Recently, as businesses began to reopening this spring, VRE implemented several digital marketing initiatives targeting potential riders based on a variety of demographic inputs. Early results indicate that we are not only raising brand awareness, but converting viewers and listeners into riders. I won't go into a deep dive of the details, but if anybody wants to, if anybody understands the clicks and click-throughs and all of that stuff that happens on social media, please let me know and I will talk to our marketing guy who can get you all that information. Next slide, please. Our ridership recovery initiatives go beyond digital marketing to include community outreach. Our goal is to reach potential riders and their employers out where they are. To that end, we have a robust schedule of events, fairs, farmers markets, and festivals in the coming months. Our schedule puts us out on the southern ends of the Manassas-Fredericksburg lines early on and brings us a bit closer into the core Alexandria, Arlington in late July and August, which is just in advance of the shutdown of the Metro Blue and Yellow line. Rich Dalton, who provides a Friday email to everybody. Hope everybody's getting that. If you don't get the VRE Friday update from Rich, please let me know. We'll get you on that list. But he will be putting the upcoming events, and we invite you all to come to those events and come check us out at our table there. Let's see. So we kicked off our community engagement just this last Sunday at the Great Train Race in Fredericksburg. Staff interacted with over 1,000 attendees and distributed many of the free ride postcards. I hope most of you have one. I have an example at your, one of these here. So there is a QR code on the back. Please give that to anybody who hasn't tried us before. This QR code will allow people to take one free round trip ride. What we have found in the past is if we can get people to take one ride, many of them stick with it. They can't believe that they haven't been doing this all along. We've also been doing a lot of outreach to business and communities, the business community through participation in Chamber of Commerce events. And through the region, we believe that's going to pay dividends in terms of garnering support from the business executives and reaching out to the employees. VRE is long considered an attractive amenity by real estate and leasing agents. So we plan to work through several trade associations in Virginia to connect with these agents and get them VRE promotional materials to share with prospective buyers and renters. Next slide, please. During the pandemic, we received significant support from our jurisdictional and elected officials in publicizing VRE's efforts to provide a safe and healthy commute. We plan on building on these efforts and share copy and paste type marketing materials that you can use in your social media and in constituent newsletters and literature and to share at public events. Next slide, please. VRE has also previously participated in regional marketing campaigns funded in part by DRPT grants and led by NVTC. Last year's Moving Forward Together campaign focused on transit systems in the region. We're focused on passenger health and safety. This year's campaign, which will launch in June, is called Rediscover Your Ride. Next slide, please. As I alluded to earlier, our ridership recovery efforts will highlight VRE as a commuting alternative to those who are going to be impacted by the shutdown of the Metro's blue and yellow lines. And we are exploring possible changes that might make VRE an even more attractive alternative to Metro Rail in Franconia, Springfield, Alexandria, Arlington. So we just wanted to go over that really quick. There is a much longer version of this in your packet from the April Ops Board meeting. So if you want more information, there's a lot there. And of course, I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the VRE report? I think we're gonna swing it over then to Mr. Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just one other update from VRE at our last operations board meeting. We elected Commissioner Bagley to serve as our secretary. I'm very excited. One, because she's going to do a great job, and two, because I've been serving as the vice chair and the secretary. Very, very happy to have her there, but we have one action item and 2 information items for VRE tonight. The action item is that on the recommendation of the VRE Operations Board, the commission is being asked to approve resolution 2476, which will authorize the VRE CEO to execute a deed of ground lease and parking garage agreement with the Economic Development Authority of the City of Manassas Park and in the city of, with the Economic Development Authority of the City of Manassas Park for a parking garage at the VRE Manassas Park Station. VRE and City of Manassas Park staff have worked to negotiate the terms of a ground lease and parking garage agreement. The city has conveyed the site for the parking garage to its Economic Development Authority in order to allow for the long term of the ground lease. The City of Manassas Park and the EDA are therefore parties to the ground lease. The proposed ground lease addresses the terms of operations and maintenance, as well as the city's request to have the ability to reacquire the parking garage site in the event that VRE service at the Manassas Park Station was discontinued, which isn't going to happen. We're planning to, but it's in the terms of the agreement. And the 2 information items, 9C and 9D, are in your packet in your written reports. We have VRE's General Counsel, Stephen Kaiser, here to answer any questions.
Questions?
It's not a question so much as just, I just wanted to add, and one of the things we also discussed, which I'm gonna hopefully do a little PSA with VRE in a week or 2, is the bicycle policy, which as a bike advocate, I'm excited about. And so all trains, all day, in both directions will allow bicycles on board, and VRE, I've seen them online myself, who's been promoting this, and I just think it's a nice way to, encourage multimodal thinking. And certainly in this yellow line shut down, it's how we're hoping to get people in Alexandria and Arlington to the station, because we don't have the parking infrastructure necessarily. So I'm excited about that change and hoping to do what I can to promote awareness about it.
Mr. Skiles. Thank you for the motion, Mr. Skiles. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Walkinshaw. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 I think that was Evan, Alcorn, Ms. Crystal, is that aye as well?
Yes.
I guess, all right. Any nays or abstentions? All right, looks like it passes unanimously. Thank you all so much. Looks like we are going to go to our newest member and DRPT. So DRPT Director DeBrule, go right ahead.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate virtually tonight. This is my 4th night in a row working this week, as we are currently on a statewide tour for public meetings for our fiscal year 23 through 28 6-year improvement program. That's where I wanted to start and just mention that that is available. We held the joint hearing with NVTC and NVTA and VRE last night out in Fairfax County at the VDOT headquarters. We're working to, once we get through the last 3 public meetings next week, we'll be working to finalize that for action by the Commonwealth Transportation Board in June. Just a few highlights for you. The program for fiscal year 23 does allocate over $1.1 billion statewide for transit and rail. The majority of that does go to public transportation, and the majority of the public transportation program is dedicated to Northern Virginia. 473 million, a little over 473 million is dedicated to Wamata. That includes the dedicated capital funding, the $50 million pre-match, and almost 269 million that comes to NVTC for operating and capital needs. We'll be moving that, like I said, we'll be moving that forward for board approval in June. At their action meeting in April, the Commonwealth Transportation Board did approve the fiscal year 23 budget for the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. That's a $595 million budget. And does include operational costs for the state-sponsored intercity passenger rail, and obviously continued work on transforming rail in Virginia. Kate touched on TISDAC already. Joe touched on our Rediscover Your Ride campaign. There's a little bit more information in our written report, but I'll wrap up there and just say it's a great pleasure to, I have big shoes to fill. I think the world of Jennifer Mitchell and have appreciated the opportunity to work for her for the past 5 years. Big shoes to fill, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve the Commonwealth in this way. And I look forward to being up there in person with you guys in the near future. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Brule. We look forward to collaborating with you as well. Any questions for Director DeBrule? Okay. Thank you. And we have a very active staff and executive director, so I'm going to throw it over to Ms. Mattice for her executive director report.
Well, thank you. And again, we've got a really wonderful, colorful and beautiful laid out newsletter. Once again, the talents of Monique are just shining all through our stuff. And so we do have on the screen just highlights of a number of the different things. It is really great to be back out, and staff have been migrating from doing online Zoom stuff to actually being out there and doing a number of conferences and ribbon cuttings and a whole bunch of different things that we reminded what we've got on there. Obviously, we're able to, we joined our colleagues out at 495 in the express lanes. The APTA Legislative Conference, I know I actually had the pleasure of hanging out for a part of that with our chair as well as Mr. Smedberg at that legislative conference for public transportation. I actually just came back from the APTA Mobility Conference out in Columbus. Again, great time to interact with colleagues and learn a number of things. I also had the pleasure of doing some work for the Washington Urban Land Institute. I think that's an organization that we probably have a great deal of opportunity for more collaboration. There's time of the day. I guess we just hop over to the next slide, and we've got a number of different things going on. Again, obviously, we've got our big commuter choice outreach that's going. I do hope that folks get a chance to see our chair do some wonderful ads, both in English and Spanish. I'm sure they're getting millions of hits on YouTube, so we're delighted for that. But the other thing, we've been doing a lot of fun with Transit Tuesdays, a lot of good factoids that are out there. A really good start from safety, but really getting beyond that. So we're really trying to get out there and do a number of different things. I don't know if we have any more slides. I don't remember. And there we go. Yes, indeed. Last night there was the joint public meeting out at VDOT. And so we had a chance to share and have members of the public talk about what's going on in terms of transportation projects within Northern Virginia. So again, busy time, engaging. It's fun to get out there, and the staff are just having a really good time being able to interact with colleagues again, in all honesty. The last thing I want to touch on, just to highlight a little bit, we did include some materials in here beyond just our financials, but also a little bit more deep dive in your materials on that 6-year improvement program that Jen was just talking about. In addition to obviously the state aid that's going to our localities, we're really happy to see that both our zero emission strategic plan as well as our regional bus strategic plan are going to be recommended for funding. This is some really great work. So you'll be seeing some requests for proposals and procurement things happening a little bit later after the new fiscal year. They've also continued to support our fellows program, our intern program. And so we've been really, really lucky. We've had some amazing talent coming through here. We're even interviewing our summer ones right now. So again, you'll have the opportunity to see some really smart folks coming through and presenting projects in the coming months. Again, we hope to have 2 or 3 perhaps this summer. And I think that is all I have, other than a reminder that our next meeting will be on June 2nd. But in the meantime, we do have a scheduled legislative and policy committee. We can touch base if we want that or not. It's on the calendar right now, which is good, as well as that Wamata committee that was referenced earlier. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Mattice. Any questions or comments from Ms. Mattice? Nobody virtual, all right. So just real fast before we adjourn, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Ms. Gilchrist and to Mr. Alafai. I had the opportunity to go to the bus rodeo. And if y'all haven't been to a bus rodeo, that thing is awesome. But thank you for some information. And so I was able to give some comments there. I think the next one is going to be in Petersburg. I think everybody's bus system participated, ARC, the connector, Q. Y'all tried really hard, but Dash and Alexandra took home the hardware, so better luck next year. And Ms. Mattias already said, our next meeting is June 2nd. And without objection, I will go ahead and adjourn